Imagine trying to power a single data center, right? And suddenly you realize you need the energy equivalent of several literal nuclear reactors just to keep the lights on.
Yeah, just to literally power the building.
Exactly. I mean, we are talking about 6 gigawatts of raw, humming electrical power. And that is the kind of scale AMD just announced they are operating at today.
It's massive.
It really is. It's
Yeah.
May 5, 2026, and AMD just dropped their first quarter earnings for fiscal year 2026.
Yeah.
And looking through these documents, it is abundantly clear that we are no longer just looking at a standard rearview mirror financial receipt.
No, not at all. We are basically looking at a literal blueprint for the physical architecture of the global economy.
Right.
I mean, the scale of the deployments they just outlined is fundamentally reshaping how the tech industry thinks about computing power. We're really moving past the theoretical phase of the AI boom and entering this heavy industrial construction phase.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. Because we are not going to sit here and just read a spreadsheet of Wall Street consensus estimates to you.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah, nobody wants that. Our goal is to decode the actual mechanisms behind these numbers. We really want to understand how AMD is attempting to rewrite the hardware rules of the AI revolution.
Right, and whether their current, sky-high market valuation is just a fragile house of cards waiting to collapse, or if it's the rock-solid foundation of a totally new era in tech.
For sure. Because the stakes across the entire sector are just immense right now. The decisions being made around these data centers, they're going to dictate the balance of power in tech for the next decade.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the financial explosion that just hit the wire is, well, it's staggering. And we need to start with the immediate catalyst.
The raw numbers.
Yeah. So revenue hit $10.3 billion. That is up 38% year over year. But, I mean, the real story is underneath that top-line number, right?
Oh, yeah. Data center revenue alone had a record $5.8 billion, which is up 57% from this time last year.
Wow.
And within that specific segment, their EPYC server CPU revenue grew by over 50%. And, when you have that kind of targeted high-margin growth, it translates directly to the bottom line.
Right. Their free cash flow literally tripled year over year, hitting a record $2.6 billion.
Exactly.
Which brings us to the famous scorecard. Wall Street loves to track AMD on 6 specific financial metrics, and this quarter they achieved a perfect 6 out of 6.
Yeah, they hit growth targets, margin acceleration, cash flow generation, and critically, the Rule of 40.
Wait, let's pause on that for a second. For anyone who doesn't track that specific metric, the Rule of 40 is basically a health check for growing companies.
Right.
You take your revenue growth rate and you add your profit margin. If the combined number is over 40, you are in this elite tier of companies that are growing fast without just recklessly burning cash to do it. AMD hit 52%.
And keep in mind, this is a hardware company.
Right. They actually have to build physical things.
Yeah, so hitting 52 is incredibly rare. That combination of massive growth and high profitability is exactly why the stock is currently sitting around $355.
Yeah.
To put that in context, that is a 350% gain over 5 very, very volatile years.
But here's the catch. Because of that massive sustained run-up, the stock is currently boasting a 95x trailing price-to-earnings ratio.
Which is high.
Oh, it's incredibly high. Let me put that 95x multiple into perspective. Operating at a 95x PE ratio is like being a tightrope walker, balancing between 2 skyscrapers, completely without a net.
That's a good way to put it.
Because at that extreme altitude, the market is pricing in absolute flawless execution. Everything has to go perfectly. If you stumble even a fraction of an inch, the fall is going to be brutal.
What's fascinating here is the historical trap of that exact 6 out of 6 scorecard.
Oh, right. The 2024 situation.
Exactly. It sounds like an absolute guarantee that the stock will rise, but it isn't. In the fourth quarter of 2024, AMD also hit 6 out of 6 passes on this exact same scorecard.
I remember that.
But the stock plummeted 26% almost immediately.
Wait, so they hit every fundamental metric perfectly. They executed their business plan flawlessly, and they still lost a quarter of their market value.
Yeah, because the fundamentals in the stock price can completely decouple when valuations get this stretched. In late 2024, the underlying business fired on all cylinders, but the PE multiple compressed. Investors simply woke up and decided, they were no longer willing to pay a 165x premium for that perfection, and the multiple shrank down to under 20x.
So when you are priced for perfection, Even good news isn't enough if the psychology of the market shifts.
Exactly. And today, at 95x, we are looking at the highest non-trough valuation reading we've seen in 2 years.
Right, so even if you don't own a single share of AMD, you need to be paying attention to this. This valuation is a barometer.
It really is.
It is the ultimate temperature check for the entire tech industry's confidence in the AI supercycle. If the market suddenly loses faith that AMD can walk that tightrope, that multiple compression will send shockwaves through every tech portfolio and 401k out there.
Yeah, the only way the market continues to pay that 95x premium is if they truly believe the total addressable market, the TAM, is expanding fast enough to justify it.
And that leads us to what might be the most mind-bending revelation from this entire deep dive. Because CEO Lisa Su just drastically moved the goalposts on how big their world can actually get.
She really did.
Just 6 months ago, AMD projected that by 2030, the total addressable market for server CPUs would be about $60 billion. Today, they effectively doubled that.
Yeah, they revised the 2030 TAM up to over $120 billion.
And I have to push back here, because you don't just find $60 billion in the couch cushions over a 6-month period.
No, you definitely don't.
Right? And the driving force they are citing for this explosion is agentic AI. Now, I hear that, and my skeptic alarm immediately goes off. Is agentic just a trendy buzzword they're slapping onto their PowerPoint slides to magically inflate their numbers, or is there an actual physical engineering requirement driving this?
It is a profound physical engineering requirement. Agentic AI fundamentally alters the actual mechanics of the data center.
How so?
Well, to understand the mechanism here, look at how AI has been built over the last few years. It has been totally dominated by massive GPUs doing the brute force math required to train large language models.
Right.
The CPUs were secondary. Their primary job was basically just to feed data into the GPUs. So the physical ratio in a standard data center was about 1 CPU for every 8 GPUs.
Okay, I always think of it like a theater production.
Okay.
For the last few years, the GPUs have been the stars of the show, doing all the heavy lifting out on stage. The CPU was just the stage manager in the wings, making sure the props were ready.
That is a great way to look at it. But agentic AI completely flips that dynamic. Because a standard AI is passive, you ask a chatbot to write a poem, and the GPU does the heavy parallel math to predict the next words. But agentic AI is active. An AI agent is designed to act on your behalf.
So it's doing things for you.
Yes. It monitors your inbox, drafts replies, pulls data from different APIs, checks your calendar, and, coordinates with another person's AI agent just to schedule a meeting.
So it's constantly switching context and executing sequential logic rather than just doing one giant math equation.
Precisely. And GPUs are actually terrible at sequential, logic-heavy traffic control. That is exactly what CPUs are designed to do.
I see.
Because these agents are actively orchestrating tasks and moving massive amounts of data around in parallel, the CPU intensity just skyrockets. Agentic AI doesn't replace the need for GPUs. It's additive.
So the stage manager suddenly has 10 times more work to do just to keep the play running.
Exactly.
So because of that shift from passive answering to active orchestration, AMD is saying the required ratio of CPUs to GPUs in the data center is shifting from 1 to 8 all the way down toward 1 to 1.
And they are seeing it happen right now. Lisa Su actually noted that this isn't some theoretical whiteboard model. AMD has concrete visibility into the exact data center architectures being built out to 2027.
Wow.
The customer planning is locked in, and they are demanding massive amounts of CPUs to handle these new agentic workloads.
So if agentic AI requires this massive 1-to-1 ratio of CPUs to GPUs, AMD is in a phenomenal position because they already dominate the server CPU market with their EPYC chips.
Right.
But to actually sell those CPUs at the scale of a whole data center, they have to prove they can match NVIDIA on the GPU side. So how is AMD fighting back on the accelerator side of the compute stack?
Through sheer unprecedented scale. I mean, the headline deployment today is a massive brand new partnership with Meta.
Okay.
Meta is deploying up to 6 gigawatts of AMD Instinct GPUs across multiple product generations. And this is not just off-the-shelf hardware either. No, this deal includes a custom MI450 chip that is being co-designed specifically for Meta's unique workloads.
Again, just to ground that number 6 gigawatts, that is roughly the energy output of 6 full-scale nuclear power plants dedicated entirely to powering these chips.
It's unbelievable.
It really is. And what makes this so pivotal is that it equals the massive 6-gigawatt deal AMD already had in place with OpenAI.
Yeah, so they have now secured 2 absolute mega anchors in the AI space. The scale of these deployments guarantees AMD a massive footprint in the infrastructure of the next decade.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because of these mega anchors, AMD noted that 8 out of the top 10 AI companies in the world are now actively using their Instinct accelerators.
That's a huge shift.
It is. And the deliveries for this massive meta deployment start in the second half of 2026, and they are going to run on a brand new architecture called Helios.
Right, Helios.
Now, I am looking at the specs for this Helios architecture, and it seems like they aren't just selling individual ingredients anymore. They're trying to sell the whole baked cake. Is that the strategy?
That is exactly the strategy, and it is entirely driven by the laws of physics. Well, Helios is their new rack scale platform. Historically, you bought a CPU from one vendor, a GPU from another, and plugged them into a motherboard. But moving data across a motherboard costs crucial microseconds and a massive amount of electrical power.
Right, which you can't waste at this scale.
Exactly. So Helios physically integrates the Instinct GPUs directly with AMD's brand new EPYC CPUs, specifically a new architecture called Venice, which is built on a 2-nanometer process using their Zen 6 architecture.
Let's touch on that 2-nanometer process.
Yeah.
Why does shrinking the transistors down to 2 nanometers actually matter for someone building a data center?
Mostly because of power density. When you are deploying 6 gigawatts of compute, you cannot just keep pumping more electricity into a rack without it literally melting the hardware.
That makes sense.
Shrinking to 2 nanometers drastically reduces power leakage. It allows them to pack more compute power into the same physical space while keeping the thermal footprint manageable. By integrating these 2-nanometer CPUs directly with the GPUs on one unified rack, AMD reduces the latency of data transfer. The chips can talk to each other almost instantly.
But, hardware is just expensive sand if the software developers can't program it easily. This has always been the knock against AMD. Everyone acknowledges their hardware is fantastic, but the software ecosystem has always lagged.
It has, yeah, but they are aggressively closing the gap. Their ROCm software stack, which is their competitor to NVIDIA software, is maturing really rapidly.
Yeah, I saw they just posted very strong MLPerf results.
They did. And for context, MLPerf is basically the industry's standardized drag race. It is a benchmark that proves exactly how fast a system can train and run AI models.
Right.
And critically, ROCm now has day zero support for major new open source AI models like Gemma, Quinn, and Kimi. The moment a new open model drops, developers can instantly run it on AMD hardware without having to write custom workarounds.
Which is huge, because if we connect this to the bigger picture, this dual-threat strategy of marrying the CPU and the GPU on the Helios platform is brilliant. AMD isn't just fighting for individual chip sales.
No, they are positioning themselves to capture what they project will be tens of billions of dollars in annual data center AI revenue by 2027.
Wow. They are selling the entire nervous system.
They want to own the entire rack. If you optimize the power and communication between the chips at the rack level, a competitor who is just mixing and matching parts from different vendors simply won't be able to match your efficiency.
It is a massive ecosystem play. But let's step off the hype train for a second, because we promised to look at the cracks in the foundation.
We did.
We know the bullish case, but executing this is incredibly difficult. And remember that tightrope. At a 95x valuation, any misstep is a disaster. So what is the gust of wind that could actually derail this?
The reality is that the report itself describes AMD's economic moat as narrow. Not wide, not unassailable, narrow, and they are fighting a war on multiple fronts. First, you have ARM architecture. ARM is aggressively pushing out of the mobile space and into servers and PCs, threatening the underlying x86 architecture that AMD relies on.
And then, of course, you have NVIDIA's software mode.
Yes. While AMD's ROCm is great for AI inference, which is using an AI model that has already been trained, when it comes to actually training the massive frontier models from scratch, NVIDIA's CDA software platform still rules the world.
Right. And to understand the lock-in with CDA, imagine trying to force an entire country to switch from speaking English to speaking French overnight.
It's a great analogy.
Right. It's not a question of which language is technically better. It is the fact that developers have spent the last decade building massive libraries of open-source blueprints and tools entirely in CDA.
Yeah.
Asking an engineering team to abandon those pre-built libraries and start over on a new platform is a massive, expensive friction point.
It is a massive barrier to entry. But the threat to AMD isn't just NVIDIA anymore. It is the hyperscalers themselves, the massive cloud providers like Google, Amazon, and Microsoft.
Because they are building their own custom silicon.
Exactly. Google has the TPU, Amazon has Trainium, Microsoft has Maya. These hyperscalers have the capital to design chips specifically for their own data centers.
Right.
Every time Google decides to run their AI workloads on their own custom TPU, that physically shrinks the total addressable market that AMD can sell their GPUs into.
So what does this all mean for AMD's balance sheet? Because fighting a war against ARM, NVIDIA, and your own customers is incredibly expensive.
Very expensive.
Looking at the internals of this report, their operating expenses, their OPEX, is up 42% year over year. They're pouring a mountain of cash into research and development just to stay in the race.
Yeah, which means the margin for error on the manufacturing side is practically zero. If there is any slip in the production ramp-up for the Helios platform in the fourth quarter, or if the manufacturing yields on that custom MI450 chip for Meta aren't perfect, the financial math completely falls apart.
And that pressure is compounded because a completely different part of AMD's business is actively bleeding right now.
Yeah.
We get so blinded by this 6 gigawatt AI numbers that we forget AMD still makes the chips for regular desktop computers and video game consoles.
Yeah, and that consumer gaming segment is a major drag on their overall margins right now. Gaming revenue is expected to drop more than 20% from the first half of the year to the second half.
Wow. And, if you are a gamer or you have kids,
Yeah.
you understand exactly why this is happening. We are now in year 7 of the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X console cycle.
It's been a long cycle.
It really has. The demand for those semi-custom console chips is drying up because everyone is just waiting for the next generation of consoles to launch. Couple that with massive memory inflation, making custom PCs more expensive to build, and that entire division is facing deep sub-seasonal weakness.
This raises an important question. Can AMD's ultimate strategy actually work?
What do you mean?
Well, their pitch to the hyperscalers relies entirely on TCO, total cost of ownership. They're arguing that by buying the fully integrated Helios rack, the overall power efficiency and performance per dollar will be superior to anything else on the market.
Okay.
But is a better TCO enough to convince an engineering team to break that deep, almost religious language lock-in with NVIDIA's CTIA? That is the $120 billion question.
It really is the ultimate tension of this entire deep dive. AMD is attempting to orchestrate a massive structural inflection in global computing.
Yeah, they're riding the wave of agentic AI.
Exactly. They are securing unprecedented 6 gigawatt mega deals with the biggest companies on Earth. And they're doing all of it while balancing on the high wire of a 95x valuation, where literally any operational misstep or any delay in a 2-nanometer manufacturing process could compress their multiples instantly.
It is literally a company attempting to physically rebuild the internet while the entire market scrutinizes their every single step.
But as we wrap this up, I actually want to leave you with one final, totally different thought to chew on. Something buried a little deeper in the sources that almost no one is talking about.
Oh, right, the Xilinx stuff.
Exactly. Right now, the entire world is hyper-focused on these flashy 6 gigawatt AI data centers. But tucked away in this earnings report is a mention of AMD's embedded FPGA franchise.
Which is fascinating.
It is. These are the specialized chips they acquired when they bought a company called Xilinx. And for context, an FPGA is a field programmable gate array. Unlike a normal chip that is permanently etched at the factory, an FPGA can be physically rewired, reprogrammed by the customer after it has been manufactured and installed.
They are incredibly versatile, and the report actually notes that these embedded chips have a 5 to 10-year design-in stickiness.
And stickiness is the key word there. Once an engineer programs one of these chips and puts it into a cell tower, or the control system of an industrial robot, or a hospital's MRI machine, they do not touch it for a decade.
Yeah, it is incredibly difficult and risky to rip that hardware out and replace it.
So here's my question for you. If the current AI hype cycle were to unexpectedly pop, or if the massive capital expenditures from the hyperscalers suddenly dry up, could it be that the most durable, unshakable piece of AMD's $35 billion empire isn't their cutting-edge AI accelerators at all?
That's a really interesting point.
Right. Could it be that their real safety net is these hidden, reprogrammable embedded chips just quietly running in the background of our global infrastructure, generating guaranteed cash flow for the next 10 years?
It's definitely something to consider.
It really is something to think about the next time you see a massive headline about the AI revolution. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the numbers, keep looking past the headlines, and keep exploring the forces shaping our tech landscape. We'll catch you next time.